You're experiencing changes in the body. What next?
You're listening to another Torched original. Are you feeling stuck when it comes to creating content for you and your business? Would you like a podcast of your very own? Or maybe you'd like to stand out and reach new audiences? Head to gettorched.com. That's gettorcht.com today, and we look forward to helping you on your content creation journey. And now, enjoy the show.
Really interesting topic. Episode 10, Love an Even Number. And as my next guest and I, Jacqui, have just worked out, she's got 16 legs in her family. I've got 10. More on that later, random. So anyway, episode number 10 is all about perimenopause or women's health, I guess. Full disclosure, I am very new to this space, 47, and have experienced some symptoms. I have been without a menstrual cycle for about 6 months and then randomly got one. So happy days. I was enjoying that moment where there was none. But other than that, for me, there hasn't been a hell of a lot of symptoms. Over the years, have trained a lot of clients that have complained of joint pain and obviously putting on weight and the hot flashes or flushes, all of that stuff. And as a trainer or a coach, because you've never really been educated in that, and there is starting to be now, but back then when I was training 20 years ago, there was nothing about women's health. And we are none of this equality when it comes to physiological stuff, because we are very different. I think we've got the wrong end of the stick, really. We get the bad deal. But, it's important, I think, the message to get, which is why I've brought you in, Jack, is, someone that has gone through that and worked with a lot of clients over the years, and that is your focus now, is to normalise this conversation. I don't know if we're going to talk about dry vaginas, but that really interests me. I'm not there yet, but God help me, I need to be prepared for when I am. But so just bring this conversation out in the open, and So Jack, you've got a huge background in the fitness industry, a wellness industry, sporting industry. Similar to myself, you've got a degree in Bachelor of Science, I think.
Yeah, Bachelor of Applied Science.
Applied Science, yeah. So got all the backing to do that, but you're very passionate about empowering women and having this conversation. So over to you, mum, businesswoman, everything else. Share your background with us, so we get a bit of a feel for who you are.
Oh, thank you so much for that gorgeous introduction. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here and talking about this topic because, as you say, we've been a little bit forgotten when it comes to educating ourselves, and not only ourselves, but also those people who, train us. So us as trainers and us as women as well.
It might be an element of, if I don't, know about it, it won't happen to me, or I don't want to know about it.
The head in the sand.
Once you start digging around in what the hell perimenopause and menopause is, you're just like, I don't want to go there, but we got no choice.
There's a bit of that, but you're right, we have no choice.
Yes.
Everyone who is fortunate enough to live to mid to late 40s, early 50s will go through perimenopause and reach menopause one day. So I think, it's really important that we normalise this conversation, just like we're getting much better at normalising the whole conversation around the menstrual cycle. It's really important that we do the same thing at this other end of our reproductive years, and we talk about perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause really openly, because when you look at how long a woman lives now, we're going to spend at least a third, up to half of our life in postmenopause. So it's really important that we understand the changes that we're going through now, making the most of what we have now before these wonderful female hormones that we poo-poo a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when you're having a baby, I remember reading that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone, I'm sure, has read that.
That's right.
My husband always said it should be what did he used to say? What to expect when they don't sleep, or I don't know, something like what they don't actually tell you. But it's similar sort of thing. So knowledge is power. So if you are educated, which I think is the point of this, it's not really for people that are necessarily in it or going or on the other side, it's those because it starts early in your mid-30s. So if you can be prepared, because there's lots of stuff that you can do to help not stop the symptoms but negate or lessen the impact, I guess, which I wish I'd known, but so far it's going okay.
Yeah, well, and see the thing about this whole perimenopause phase, I should be able to say that many times a day, is that it actually starts in the brain. So you are the changes are happening in your brain before they actually show up physically in your body. So even though that you're saying that your periods are starting to become a little bit erratic in their pattern, there are changes that are going on underneath the hood, as I like to say already. So I don't know if you want me to go into a few definitions.
Is that
on.
the psycho side of things? Like my son Max calls me, Patricia. Like, who's this personality, Mum? Is this Patricia? Patricia's the cross one, which comes out a lot. Like
is it because you have a less your tolerance is less?
100. That is the biggest thing I think that I've noticed is that you've got less patience, and I always put that down to I'm busy or whatever, but it's a thing, right?
Yeah, it is a thing, definitely is a thing. So what's going on is that our ovarian function is slowing down. So we're not releasing eggs as regularly, and we need the release of the egg to produce the estrogen. Estrogen is this wonderful headline hormone in the female body that does so many amazing things.
Is that the one that makes you look young as well?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it is crucial in building and maintaining muscle, building and maintaining bone, in so many neuromuscular functions that go on in your body, your metabolism, keeping your skin healthy and hair and all of those sorts of things.
I think your joints have even got estrogen receptors.
Yeah, it's actually really important in blood vessels and keeping them nice and pliable. So if it involves systemically through the body. So if it is so involved when it's around, you can imagine what's going to happen when it disappears. That's why we have all of these changes.
So bizarre that it has to disappear though, right?
I know, it's a little bit sad. It's just part of biology and evolution, isn't it? I don't. There's the grandmother hypothesis. Have you heard about that?
No.
That it's humans and I think it's killer whales might be the only other mammal species that.
Gorillas
as well. Yeah. That the females go through menopause.
Yes, those
and
two. Yes.
The theory behind it is that the women, once they've reached menopause, they start to take on that nurturing role of looking after the younger children. So while the mothers are carrying and birthing children and doing the early infancy, the grandmothers are helping and supporting the rest of the community and the families and that. And if you look at what happens in humans, it does happen a little bit to that.
Yes.
We've evolved a bit more socially in that, or become a bit more socially disconnected, I suppose, in many ways, that we don't have that village approach to raising people anymore. But that's the hypothesis behind why humans go through menopause.
Yes, right. Well, there you go.
Yeah. But so what's happening to us? So if you think about where the stage that we're at in life is midlife. I know we don't like that phrase, but we are smack bang in the middle of life. So I think I looked at statistics recently, and if in 2020 you were a 45-year-old woman, you could expect to live until you're about 86. So it's about halfway, really.
Right.
And if you consider that the average age of reaching menopause, which is 12 months since your last period, it's a one date in time, and you only know about it in hindsight, average age is about 52 in Australia. You've still got a good third to half of your life to live.
Yeah, whereas most people look at it, I had one of those moments, I've said on this podcast before, you get invited to a wedding and you going because you're the parents' guest, all those little moments. You're like, oh my God. And you look in the mirror and all of a sudden you look a bit older and, you got a few, things heading south. And you're like, oh, am I at this stage? But it's how you approach it. Look at it in a different way, the positive way. Yeah. And you've just said it there. You still got half, it's not over.
No way.
You got half the life.
Yeah. And you think of all of the opportunities that are opening up to you when you do get to this phase of life. Like we were just talking before coming on air that, or pressing record, that you know, I've got my youngest child is finishing school this year, so
last school fee paid.
Last
check.
school fees paid. Tick. So life opens up, and you know, you can go travelling, and you can the flexibility or the bookends of your days of dropping off and picking up or being around at either end of the school day are gone. They're not there anymore.
Wow.
And so you relate that back to the changes that are going on in your body. And one of the big things I think we touched on before was your muscles change. You lose muscle mass. Muscle is so important in staying strong. If you want to be able to get your luggage on and off those baggage carousels, you need to stay strong.
Get in and out of a pool, like so many things.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah.
There's lots of changes going on, but there is so much that we can do about it. And it's just you're so right, awareness, education, and the earlier that we can let women know that, yes, you are going to approach this phase of life. Everyone is going to go through it. This is what you can do to help yourself and help everyone else. Let's do it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, you know, we talk a lot in our studio, which we focus on movement, you know, building unbreakable bodies type stuff. And it's one of those things where you see it, people lose their, not necessarily, you know, if they've trained a lot, they'll have their strength, but they lose power. Mm-hmm. They lose the ability to get up and down off the floor. Like you don't have to. We've got 60, 70, 80, 90-year-olds that can do that, but they've been doing that, building that for a long time. Yeah. So, you know, it is a message that, yes, you can definitely change it, but why wait? You know, what are you waiting for? You do have to lift.
Yeah, lift heavy shit.
I love that. Hashtag lift heavy shit.
Yeah. So we want to encourage women to get in, you know, into the weights room or to get into your gym and to not only move but move well. So learn how to move well first and then load it up. And when I say load it up, don't be scared to keep lifting those little, you know, pink dumbbells. Let's lift heavy, and heavy is relative to where you are.
I've seen some of your
in your training
stuff. I'm like, man, she's tiny but lifting heavy.
And you know, women for so many years have been a bit scared of lifting heavy because they don't want to get bulky. But it is so hard for a woman to get bulky.
Yeah, and I think that the other side to that is it's everything. The body works together, right? So if you're going to build muscle, yes, you're going to build muscle, but what people tend to do and why they get bulky is they're not looking at their food intake either. So they, you know, the muscles build and then they have the same body fat on top. Well, anyone's going to look bulky. It's not the weights that the issue is. It's the other side of what's going in the mouth as well. So you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet, as they say.
That's true. So true. Yeah.
But it is more than, I mean, I've passed what you look like. We're never going to look like we did when we were, you know, 20 and 30.
Yep.
There is, you know, that's just an evolution. So the focus, I think, and the mindset does need to shift from what you look like to how you're going to feel and what you're setting yourself up for enjoyment later in life.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think the diet culture and the fitness industry to a degree have done themselves such a disservice.
That's why I've taken so long to be on Instagram or now I think I've got a TikTok account, which I know I haven't done one yet. Well, I did one the other day with my social media person. She made me. I'm like, oh my God, it hasn't gone up yet. But because there's just so many mixed messages and it is really confusing. But, you know, as humans, we complicate things, and even the food is not complicated.
No, nothing, none of it is complicated. You're right. We want to complicate it, but
there's no easy fix though, right?
There's no easy fix, and I think that's so there's a couple of things going on here that diet culture and the fitness industry have done a disservice by attaching exercise to either staying small, losing weight, punishment for something that you ate, no pain, no gain, all of these hashtags.
Yes.
That, you know, everyone's got the same 24 hours in a day, so of course you can fit this 45-minute workout in, regardless of whether you just haven't slept because you've got a new baby or you're working 15-hour days.
It's the guilt. It's like guilting you into things.
Absolutely.
It's bizarre.
And that's what, if you look at the definition of exercise is doing an activity that makes you stronger mentally or physically. where is the attachment to getting your bikini body or bouncing back to shape in that definition?
It's so true. Oh my God, it actually infuriates me. It really does. Yeah.
And unfortunately, our generation, I think I'm about 5 years ahead of you. We've been brought up on that. And
I had an inquiry last night. An inquiry into my studio. I'm 53. I'm really skinny, but I just want to train my arms because I've got flabby arms. I'm like, wow, are we still there?
That's really
sad. Are we actually
isn't it?
still there? So I was trying to educate over text, which is the first time I've ever done that. Like I've always spoken to someone. It was bizarre. I was thinking to myself, 8:30 at night, I'm wanting to watch House of Dragons, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm texting, trying to convince someone it's not just about your arms and you can't actually do anything just about your arms.
It's hard to put in thumb language.
I don't even thumb. I'm that old school one. But, it's just we are still there, Anyway, we've segued a little bit.
We have segued a little bit, but I think that's where you and we've got to get over ourselves and put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
Because you can't be what you can't see.
Correct.
And that's been, I know this isn't about me, but that's been a lot of my problem in coming out into this space and saying what I believe in more is because it's all in my head.
Yes.
But if you and I don't do it, how can anyone else follow?
Yeah.
So we've got to get over ourselves, Kirsty.
Well, that's why you're here, because I want to learn off you, right? So, you can't know everything, and I'm the first to say this space, whilst it is super exciting, for me, I don't know much about it.
Well, hit me with some questions.
Well, there's just the little things like I didn't even know that there was 4 phases to a menstrual cycle.
Oh, yeah, didn't you?
No, had no idea until I started researching
digging deeper
12, 18 months ago. And I actually said to one of the executive producers, I think that's what you call them, it's all new lingo to me, was how we got started. And I said, there really needs to be, I really think I want to do a podcast in menopause. There's just nothing. I didn't even know about perimenopause. I said, I just feel like there's nothing in this space. Well, now there's a lot, obviously, but it wasn't until then I went, oh my God. And I was asking clients, that there's 4 phases to a menstrual cycle? I said, what do you mean? Isn't there just period and ovulation? I'm like, no, there's the luteal phase and the follicular phase, and then there's times where you should train differently in those times, and it's a really interesting area, and it is something that some of the PTs who are going through training now are actually starting to learn about. One of the courses that I work on, help facilitate teaching menstrual cycle training is part of that. Awesome.
Yeah, which is really great.
Yep.
Unfortunately, as with everything in the fitness industry, it's picked up as a trend, and then it's applied in ways that it shouldn't necessarily be applied, that it's this way or it's not sort of thing. Right. And as with humans are individuals, everything is individualised. It should be. I don't like that word should, but it needs to be individualised when it comes to fitness.
And that's why there is no quick fix in any of it. If there was an easy way to lose weight, look good, surely someone would have found it.
Absolutely.
And they'd be super wealthy, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is so different. And even when you start learning about the menstrual cycle, the luteal phase, the follicular phase, whatever it is, it's all varies. And so you got to take your own notes. You got to start being responsible. And this is what I say to clients with their food. They want a food plan. I refuse to give it. It's like you can eat whatever you want, but listen to what you need. Are you head eating, meaning emotional, or are you eating because you're hungry? There's a big difference. I think we've forgotten how to listen to what the body needs. If you listen to that, then you'll be okay. You'll choose the right foods.
Intuition is something that we need to learn to dial back into.
Yeah. And how do you do that?
How do you do that? I know that is a bit hard. I think first step is probably to...
The kids are going to finish school.
Kids finish school. But turn off the noise from all of the other things that are going on. Totally. Try not to take so much, someone popping up on your phone on Instagram showing you the way to do the latest workout.
Yeah.
Just try and ignore that and just go back into what you feel like. So, that's probably the best way to put that.
So where I was going while we were talking about, I love this. I love segues. But why I brought up the menstrual cycle is just, in terms of and then I know a lot in the female athletes, they track this. So where you do your strength training, because there's more balance of the progesterone and things like that. So growth hormones come into play. So listening to how you feel. So, you know, like if you go and do a high intensity session, for example, sometimes you feel like you're actually going to die, and you think, God, I feel that unfit, or is it what I ate last night? You're like, you look at all these things, but it could just be that the hormone
cycle that you're in.
The hormones are not at that point. So if you start documenting that, well, I'm assuming, I don't know, this is where my head's going, is that if you document that for a couple of months, you'll start to see a pattern of what your body does and when you feel strong. Because I know sometimes I'll smash out a workout and I'll feel amazing. And then other times I walk into the studio and I go, how do I feel? How did I sleep? You know what? I don't need to smash myself. I'm just going to hang out and just do some movement.
Yeah.
You know?
In general terms, it's if we start at, so day one of the menstrual cycle is the first day of your bleed. Generally, that first 2 weeks, that's your follicular phase, is that as you progress through that phase, you actually do feel better. You can hit your PBs with your strength. You can hit higher intensities with your anaerobic and aerobic training. Around ovulation, some women really hit their peak and they can really go for PBs. Other women,
isn't that where you're meant
so
to
much.
look hot as well? Like, because you're meant to attract.
Absolutely, that's where you're at your best.
It's like a peacock. Yeah.
Well, you attract the male peacock.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not. You check male, female these days.
Oh, absolutely. That's right. And so that's because your estrogen levels are at their highest in that early phase of your cycle. At around ovulation, estrogen drops off, progesterone then becomes the main player in the second half, and we call that the high hormone phase because both hormones, estrogen and progesterone, are elevated in that time. And as you progress through that second half, I'm talking in general terms of the 28-day cycle, as you progress through that, you can't hit the higher intensity levels as much, so that's where you do feel a bit more huffy-puffy.
Yep.
You start to feel a little bit more unsteady sometimes, even towards the end as you get closer to your period, you're just feeling heavier in the legs, you might feel a bit bloated, all those PMS symptoms come on. So that's a time to really back off going for intensity and go for more technique and really honing in on your technique and lots of recovery time. Yeah. And then right before your period, you can back off completely. Maybe that's when you dial in your rest day, a couple of rest days, and then you pick it back up again. Yeah.
And it's interesting because it goes back to your intuition and how you feel and listening to your body and what it needs.
That's right, yeah. And as you say,
not complicated.
Everyone's different. So you might be completely different to me, but that's what I was just talking was in general terms then.
Yeah, of course.
And then if you've been tracking your cycle over years, when you start to reach perimenopause and you start to have some fluctuations, like I think to start with the cycles actually start to get a little bit shorter. And so if you would normally say a 28-day cycle and then you notice over a period of months that your cycle's coming into like 25 days consistently and then maybe to 21, it's like, okay, things are really starting to change. Yeah. And what I'm talking about here is a natural menstrual cycle. It's not one that's controlled by the combined pill. Yep. Because the bleed on a pill is not a period. It's a withdrawal bleed. So whether if you're not taking any contraception or if you're using some other method and you have a natural period, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yep.
And then as you continue through perimenopause, the cycles become more erratic. You can get some really heavy bleeds. You can go for longer periods of time in between cycles. You might completely skip cycles. Yeah, lots of things go on. Yeah. So if you're documenting, you're going to be on top of what's going on.
And they also say, I was listening to, she's incredible. I wish she was in Melbourne. She's in Byron Bay. She all over this women's health stuff, but I remember listening to one of her workshops and she was saying, and this is for mums out there with young girls, that if you document like when you're hitting puberty, like what happens with your periods, are they heavy, is there pain, all of that stuff, that gives you a bit of an insight into what your perimenopause is going to be like, which I thought was really interesting. So if there is any young mums out there with teenage girls, well, not necessarily young, because if I had girls, they'd be in that space. Yeah. But yeah, really interesting to do as well. So it really is a lifelong.
It is. And the other thing about that is if you are talking to your teenage daughter about, their first period and the early periods and stuff, is that you're talking to her about perimenopause too, because there is a bit of a familial history so if your mother went through perimenopause, menopause, at around early 50s, well, you could think that you're probably going to go through it at a similar time.
Yeah, which is interesting. Gives you a bit of a heads up as well to where it's at.
That's right.
And then where was I going with? So joint pain, for example, because there's estrogen receptors in the joints. Mm-hmm. Obviously, once that estrogen's withdrawing, you're going to get joint pain, because I hear that a lot. Or, just at night, muscle aches, which are really the joint aches, etc. And is there any? Apart from movement, movement.
Movement crosses all.
Everything, like every single study I look at, whether it's cancer or it's, any
if we could put it in a pill,
seriously,
we'd be millionaires.
It's prescribed at every level. So obviously movement, the right type of movement, I think that's confusing for people. So we probably need to engage in someone that knows what they're doing to get the right type of movement, or listen to your body. Does it feel good for me or not? So there's movement that comes into it. Is there any other natural ways that you can help with that?
Yeah, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, so what I'm saying here is just very general and broad. But things like, your oily fishes and those types of food, so that high in omegas.
Yep.
Then there's also some adaptogens that are plant-based substances that just assist your body in going through this phase of life.
Yep.
I can't recall what they are off the top of my head.
Yep.
But there are some adaptogens. I think there's things like ashwagandha, shashandra. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head.
People can look research
them up.
that, which we suggest, because this is just general information, and then go do your homework. Don't leave it to the last minute like me.
Yeah. But there are some things that you can do.
Yeah,
yes, definitely.
And the gut has a big part to play as well. And, like I said at the start, I hadn't had a period for 6 months, so you think there'd be some other symptoms that I would be experiencing, but not really. So I always wonder, does that come back to always being active? Does that come back to, I was brought up on a, farm girl, so it's sort of 3 meat and veg, kind of like the Mediterranean diet, I guess you'd say. Not a lot of high processed stuff in my diet. The gut, you'd assume my gut would be quite healthy, and I'm just wondering what that has to play out when you're going through all that.
I'm sure it's got a big role to play. You think of just even the natural aging process. It is affected by all of those things that we can control, such as smoking, diet, alcohol, exercise, the environment that you live in, your sleep and stress, all of those things. So if they affect aging, of course they're going to affect how you go through menopause as well. And there have been a couple of recent studies that have come out that are great for us in this industry, in that if you've got they found that women with a higher lean muscle mass displayed less vasomotor symptoms. So they're things like your hot flushes and that.
Yep.
Which is great.
There you go.
There you go. Get in and lift.
I'd have a lot of lean muscle on me, you'd think.
But I think gut health is important, because there's such a connection between what goes on in the gut and what goes on in the rest of the body and the mind. You know, that whole interconnection is really quite fascinating.
So to help people that are listening that are unsure of what to eat, I think, again, if we keep it simple and it's just one ingredient, as in something that's just itself in its whole, so whole food.
Yes.
So there's nothing added or it's not refined in any way. If you can kind of pretty much stick to that philosophy, then you're on a pretty good path.
Absolutely. Like protein is a really important macronutrient that we take in to support what we're doing particularly perimenopausal women, we quite often don't have enough protein in our diet anyhow. But the best source of protein you can get is coming from food, not from protein powders. You can consider protein powders if you can't get enough protein in other ways, but there are so many other sources of protein which is readily available to you that have all of the other macro and micronutrients and vitamins and minerals that you don't need to go to the protein powders.
And what is it? Vitamin D has
Vitamin
a massive.
D is massive.
So many people. And
that is probably the one supplement that I would suggest that every person takes.
Isn't it interesting?
Actually.
And I don't know whether because, 12, 18 months ago I started thinking about menopause and perimenopause, so I was doing a lot of reading about vitamin D, or whether it's because of the pandemic, because there is a hell of a lot of clients that this year, since reopening, coming in saying, I'm vitamin D deficient. So is that because we spend a lot of time indoors?
Yeah.
Or am I just more aware? It's like, when you go to buy a new car and you see that car everywhere.
Absolutely linked to us being indoors for the last 2 years. So we I know we need to be sun smart, but we also need to get regular sunlight exposure, because that is so important in that whole, bone remodelling process that goes on daily in the body. And for women in particular, osteoporosis is a big issue because we lose estrogen. Estrogen is so heavily involved in that whole bone remodelling process, as it is in building muscle. Muscle works on bone to continue to make it strong. It's just a whole cycle.
And I think, it's a perfect time to reiterate this again, is the body it can't segregate it in any way. It all works together.
Absolutely.
And I think instead of us being afraid of it, embrace it and learn about it. And I still find it odd. And it's one of those things, the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know.
Yeah,
which
the more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah, so it can be quite overwhelming. But it still blows my mind of how little we know, or people want to know. When it's your house, it's what you've got for the rest of your life. So.
And for so long we've disempowered ourselves. We've gone to other people to tell us what's wrong.
True.
Well,
that's the easiest way, right?
It's the
just pay someone to tell me what's wrong.
Yeah. But then you end up having a life of having to take a million different pills to keep you going. Whereas if you can spend a little bit of time and invest in yourself, educating yourself, learning about yourself, testing and trialing things, test and measure the whole time, use yourself as N=1 as a sample.
I think the instant gratification is a thing there, when you want to, because you can't just make a change and then see the results the next day. It does take time and patience. And that's where you just do your research, do your education, listen to people like us chitty-chatting about stuff, but, do your research and then make an informed decision but give it time to have the impact. And just when you're talking about investing in yourself, a few years ago, I was looking at a client I've had now, it's 22 years.
Wow.
Really, there's two husband and wife. 22 years I've been training with me, as long as I've been in Melbourne. And really they're very creatures of habit, pretty much the same training time for that whole time. Anyway, I said to the wife in particular, I said, so why do you train? Like, why do you keep coming? Like, we've been together now for, back then it was probably 20 years.
Question.
Like, what makes, I need to understand where do I find more people like you? But, she is stuck with me forever. She said, you know what? She said, people tell me, or my friends tell me it's expensive and, how do you afford to do that or whatever. She said, but I prioritise it because she said, I'm going to spend this money eventually anyway. She said, I'm just choosing to spend it now so I have to ensure a quality of life, hopefully, because you can never be assured. Like, exercise just doesn't cure everything. Or I don't do anything and I spend it on medical bills later.
Yeah. What a wise woman.
What a wise woman.
Yeah.
And I look at her now, she's just turned 60, and I look at her now and I think, wow, what she is doing. We're actually doing a video of all of her exercise. And I said to her, why do you want me to keep taking these? So she goes, because I need these played at my funeral. She said, I need people to see what I used to do. And she said, and I need to show my friends what I can do. Like she's incredible. And I think
that's such a good approach.
That is, but in terms of the menopause and perimenopause stuff, she's really suffered, because she just didn't know. It just wasn't spoken about. So that was another. She was probably one of my main reasons. I'm like, man, I'm sick of her whinging about this. I need to learn about this. Then when I started getting through things, it's like, okay,
I know.
Let's unpack this.
We really do need to educate ourselves. We need to educate people like us in the fitness industry with what's going on. I mean, 50% or more of a PT's clients are going to be women and are going to be middle-aged women at some point in time. Yeah. So if we don't know how to best deal with them and help manage them through this time. It's really
now. There was something that we were talking about, and you said, I think it was actually in one of the emails that we sent, and I loved it about the back half of the life. You want to empower, like it's the best time.
Oh, what did I say? That we want to live long and die short. That's one of my sayings.
Love it.
Yeah. I would much prefer to, like the Queen. She lived long and died really short. She lived a full life.
Yeah.
It was only really towards the end that she was a little bit incapacitated, but she lived a really full life. I look at my mother-in-law. She's 95.
Wow.
She's lived a full life and lived rather than, unfortunately, my poor mum who's living with Alzheimer's. So, yes, she's still living, but, these last few years of life aren't going to be that great.
No.
Do all that you can now to set yourself up to live a full, long, well, it doesn't have to be long, but live a life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other pearls or words of wisdom?
I don't know. I think just learn about yourself, invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to try stuff, walk into a gym, give it a go. If it doesn't feel right, go down to yours. Actually, go there first because you won't walk out. You'll stay there.
Oh, you might. But, it is one of those things where you don't have a choice.
Once they're there, once they're in your gym.
No. Maybe we lock the doors. No, but as in like – I don't know what you're waiting for. Like it's going to happen. Life's going to eventually run out, but you want to live it, like you said, to the fullest. So I love it. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Now we can find you. Well, you tell me, where can we find you?
I am on Instagram, Jacqui.Toohey. Not terribly active. Watch this space though.
But what you have posted, it's empowering. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. But watch this space. Get on it. If I'm doing it, you should do it.
Yeah.
We're midlife, remember? Like we're meant to live on the back end.
You can't be what you can't see.
Now, do you still have your healthy? What was your?
Oh, I was Heart, Body and Soul. Thanks
right.
COVID, that stopped.
Oh,
so
I love that name.
I've still got the name, but
great.
it's just not an active business at the moment.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on. And I'm sure if anyone's got any questions, they can hit us up at what's my Instagram at what next with KR, and then I can get you back and we can
Q&A session.
I'd love that. That would be awesome. That's next on the agenda.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of What Next? I'm Kirsty Robbie, and if this episode sparked any questions and you want to know more, please hit us up on our socials at whatnext_ with KR, and have a great day.
You're listening to another Torched original. Are you feeling stuck when it comes to creating content for you and your business? Would you like a podcast of your very own? Or maybe you'd like to stand out and reach new audiences. Head to gettorched.com. That's GETTORCHT.com today, and we look forward to helping you on your content creation journey.